I go through the Python, or doesn't matter?
No, that's okay. We can just start from here.
Okay. All right, and I think it's recording now.
That's
Just make sure. Okay, good. Okay. All right, so
Make sure it flips to screen share.
what do you mean?
Oh, just bring it up again just for a second.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see the screen share.
Isn't it wrong? Yeah, see, if I close this
Yeah.
and come back, it's gonna show the, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, yeah.
All right.
That already good.
So this is Pet Nanny project team, or Laith. Say your name.
Say your name, guys.
Sanjay Ganesh.
I'm Jay Balaji.
I'm Dilip Marthavaraj.
And our project is a system that should take care of your pet's feeding and health monitoring needs. It should be able to distribute, feed the pet, dispense food, dry food specifically, and water for your pet. It should be able to understand how much the pet left or ate, if on the bowl or whatnot, how much was spilled out and stuff like that. And the guys here can't talk in details. I'm just gonna briefly explain it, and it should detect when the pet is eating, when it's there, when it's just coming for a weight check kind of thing. You could train your pet to just go for weight check and come back kind of thing. It should also be able to do the waste collection, the waste measurement, but for complications with hardware, we skipped adding that feature because there's a lot of hacking that needs to be done with existing systems. So we just eliminated that for the meantime until we actually have a partner who wants from that side wants to join in. Yeah. So I think So Dalib is gonna go in more details.
My name is Dilip Marthavaraj, and this is our homepage basically, and which has 4 options in it: hardware system trigger, add data point, and edit data point, and the history. The hardware system trigger is like basically we like did this for the system trigger, which we initially thought like it's not in our MVP actually. Like we thought if we enter some 2 data points in it, uh, like hardware system trigger as the water volume in ml, like the time, or how many time, like it, like for how long the water fountain should run, and the food weight is in grams is like it looks like a single field, but what it should do actually as per our idea is like if it's water fountain and like it goes like it just runs for how many time, like how long we give, like it runs for that. And food here we should take into consideration like how much is the leftover food. Like if the system triggers some amount before, and if the pet, like cat or dog, it doesn't have the entire thing, then it should detect the leftover food, and where we are going to use load cells, like for to know the pair how much is left over. And the second time the algorithm which we ran behind the screen should like calculate exactly how much is the thing which we should add. Like if it's, I have assigned 250 grams of food to be dispensed every time. If the leftover is 150, the algorithm should be capable enough to find that 100 grams food which should be dispensed the second time. This is what we expected to do. Like it's our future thing. So for now, if we give, it's just gets stored in the database, the values, and then from where the Raspberry Pi will fetch the data and then it will dispense. For now, we have done like it gets into the database, the data. Actually, if it click dispense from here, the pet nanny device should dispense the food as I gave the value. And if you check the history, the value which I entered will be in the database, and from here the device will look for the value and fetch it. That's where we like initially we were about to code in Python, so such that we were like about to do the entire process like the dispense thing and stuff, but unfortunately we were not doing it. Like it didn't go good for us. Like through the mid of the class we were like, if we are going with Python and something goes wrong at the last, it's like we won't be having anything to show. So that's where like we switch completely to Ruby on Rails, and then now we are here. So and add data point will be set in detail by Jay Balaji.
Hello, I'm Jay Balaji. And the next feature in our project is the add data point. So the add data point is like it's similar to hardware trigger, but hardware trigger, the difference between the hardware trigger and the add data point is that if you upload a data on hardware trigger, it affects the hardware as well as the database. But in the add data point, it just affects the database, not the hardware. So if you fed your cat or dog sometime that's not fed by the machine, but you fed that, you remember. But but in the long run, you have to know that you have fed the pet, and then you have to calculate the pet's health, right? So the amount of food that it eats and the amount of water that it consumes should be measured. So that's where
This is for manual feeding.
yeah, it's for manual.
To take it into consideration.
You're right. So for now, if we give any values, it's exactly the same like the hardware trigger. So even if you give 2 fields, it will accept, or any 1 field, it will accept. So that's the last field, and irrespective of the number of fields, it will accept. So
This is where we enter the values manually. Like if you want to make some changes to the dispense system, where we use this field for.
Yeah.
And
then Sanjay will be explaining the history part, how the history view and the history is rendered.
So basically now we have to edit data point and history. History is the place where all the data are stored in the database. So whenever you do the hardware system trigger or the add data point or the edit data point, it will get stored in history. Suppose if you do an add data point and if you want to edit the data point, you can select the history from the edit data point so that it can retrieve that particular data point from the history, and you can edit the values according to whatever you want. So suppose if you have added 200 grams, but actually you have added 100 grams, by mistake you added 200 grams, you could realize that later and you can add the 100 data grams here so that it get updated in the history. That is what the edit data point is basically about.
this is where we messed up somewhere. Like there is some error in this part. So
While linking the database in the edit, we are
Actually, what should happen is if so what should happen is if this button, if this drop down list on change, so this should select the record and then accordingly it should display. But it displayed once, but I don't know why it's not. It's somewhere.
It's not working. There's one thing we found out, and we were more or less regretting it, is that we went with the hardware being the same thing as the server, with the Raspberry Pi being the hardware and the software side, and just closer to the mic, and it's given a lot of issues with having it as the server, because it's a very bare bone Debian distribution, and a lot of stuff that Ruby and Rails expect to be there are actually not there. So a lot of, we run into we have it running on one of the machines and it's fine. And we've been actually testing his machine and the Leaves machine, and I think we did once on your machine and your machines too. I think yesterday or 2 days before. But it runs, and when not, it's more or less consistent. But when we go to to the Pi, it gives us errors on installation in even getting the build deploy in the deploy thing. So it is, and we found that we have to, and that's why if you look actually at the pivotal tracker, you see setting up Pi is a very big chore. It's a very long chore because you have to go back and forth, and
Because even there is no direct method to install RVM, so we have to install the homebrew and then download it.
And connecting it to the database was a huge task. Every time we used to
find some other way which the others are not following. So it was a really difficult task for us to do because we are completely different. So it's like for everything we should find something new. That's where initially, like you also know, I guess, Professor, like for connecting the database itself, we felt like we took a lot of time.
We took a lot of time for connecting
for that.
So that's one of the issues we were facing. Pi itself, it's capable as a hardware. It's capable of doing a lot of all the tasks and everything, but as a software, it's not capable. And we thought about having a Ubuntu distribution on it, but even that is like a light Ubuntu distribution, so it doesn't actually have all the necessary.
So what would you propose in the future to get around that?
Have actually a web hosting service, and use that to have your server, and then you could have a server also running, an HTML server running on the Pi, but it's only listening for triggers coming from from your actual server and actual site to trigger the hardware, and then it sends back whatever feedback to the server.
Right. So then you do all the processing elsewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then,
I see what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And we wanted, because we were thinking of this as a product that consumers can actually replicate and get with minimal customization. We want it to be on one system. You just have it, and if someone does not want this to be connected to the internet for privacy or some kind of reason, they can just have it running at home. They don't have to have a server somewhere. So that's it in a nutshell. One of remind me, guys, what other things we had with the Pi? We had another issues with the Pi too. The SSH that worked fine locally. For some reason, he tries it so many times, doesn't work on his machine. I try it on my phone, it works. I try it on my Mac, it works. And then, I don't know what happened. We changed the users.
Because it was, the username was previously Loki, and then the new username was Pi, and the IP address was mismatched, and the key was mismatched. So I had to delete the SSH key from the.
And it crapped on us a couple of times, and we had to reset everything. And we found out that, let's just keep everything as it is. We're not going to modify permissions. And
Pi has this problem, like if you have installed a Skype or another communication system, so they will acquire some port of it. And actually, Raspberry Pi want to access only those ports.
Yeah.
So it will complete and don't work. Even I'm working on the same. This sounds similar.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
It's
because all your app will acquire some ports from your ports. So if Raspberry Pi is very particular that I only use this port.
Only a particular.
That's
unless the way he changed in his access browser, and unless you do that.
Yeah.
Unless it will not
it will look for the same port.
Yeah. That's why when
it's a similar problem.
You saw it, right? I'm listening to a port from outside and I'm triggering a different port inside, because Pi only wants that port, doesn't want anything else. So yeah. So that's I think it's just figuring it all out and figuring out that the Pi have all these restrictions took a lot of the time in development, and hardware really sucked up a lot of our time. It was sucking a lot of our time. So yeah, that's it. Anything else we need to demo?
Usually we look at the pivotal tracker and we, examine everyone's stories and code, etc. And you said your RSpec is working with this trope with the cucumber.
Yeah, and I'm starting to think it's just the way because we were tackling hardware first in our code, and the way we initially set up our software, it's conflicting with Cucumber. So if we want to solve it, we'll probably have to start our system from scratch and have Cucumber, built in from the beginning, and then and then develop the hardware, like develop our software first and then develop our hardware. And
initially, for adding Cucumber in it, like we had to give some other line of code. But sorry, unfortunately, initially we were like focusing on doing with the hardware, so we didn't include those files in it. So now we are facing a lot of problems to include the Cucumber in it. So each and every time we are looking for a file, it's not there. It's because initially we gave some other
File name
and stuff.
Well, why don't you show me your RSpec?
yeah,
Sure. Oh, and if you want, because this is the production demo, you can end the
Recording.
yeah,
Stop the
recording.
Where is it? No, 5 pounds.